All right. Welcome to this 5 session teaching on end times, the tribulation. This is just such a huge topic. There's so many aspects of this that I couldn't begin to cover adequately, but it is a topic of great interest to us in the day in which we live. And so I'm going to try to give you some good information and some things to think about and to see if we can wrap our brains around some of these questions that I'm going to be asking. This session is called Will End Times Ever Really Come? Now, before we get into that, this is a question that I want to ask you. What's the one thing about the earth that absolutely everyone agrees upon? I mean, everyone, regardless of their religious background or their education. You may come up with maybe a couple answers, but I think this is the primary answer. The earth and life is on this planet as we know it has not existed forever. There was a time when earth did not exist. There was a beginning. Earth had a beginning. Those who do not believe in a creator God generally adhere to a godless yet very still miraculous theory of the beginning of Earth. And you've heard of some of these theories. Here's the kind of the most prominent one, the Big Bang Theory. This is from 1998, the Handy Space Answer Book. 15 to 20 billion years ago, a big bang or explosion occurred, creating the universe. The universe began as an infinitely dense, hot fireball, a scrambling of space and time. What a bunch of gobbledygook that is. What is a scrambling of space and time? 15 to 20 billion years. Why not 10? Why not 50? How in the world could people come up with something like this? But those who believe in a creator God generally adhere to the biblical account of creation. In the beginning, Yahweh created the heavens and the earth. So, if everyone agrees that earth had a beginning, does everyone also agree that earth will have an end? Okay, let's look at that. According to secular belief, the earth is not invincible, and according to experts, it is possible that the end of the world could come in the form of something man-made or a natural disaster on a scale we have yet to see. So says Katie Machado. We are eroding the very foundations of our economies, livelihoods, food security, health, and quality of life worldwide. Sir Robert Watson, the chair of the massive multinational research effort to survey the impact of human development on the natural world. Nuclear weapons have more than enough destructive power to wipe out the human race for good. Life science writer Michael Sherber. But scientists do not believe that even the combined nuclear arsenal of Russia and the United States could produce enough energy to actually blow up or destroy the planet. Scientists predict that if we keep going along our current greenhouse gas emissions trajectory, climate change will cause more than a third of the Earth's animal and plant species to face extinction by 2050. Whoa, just around the corner. And up to 70% by the end of the century. Such a catastrophic loss would irreversibly diminish biodiversity, severely disrupt ecosystems, and cause immense hardship for human societies worldwide. Center for Biological Diversity. And that sounds pretty scientific, doesn't it? According to Greg Leonard, a senior research specialist at NASA, there is a 100% probability of the Earth being hit by an asteroid powerful enough to wipe out life on the planet. But will it happen in 1,000,000 years or in 10 years? They can't say. There is one asteroid dubbed the Japanese Fireball, which sizzled past Earth in 2017. If there were a direct strike, it was hypothesized to have wiped out human life, leaving a 46-kilometer diameter crater in its wake. This same asteroid has been worked out to have a 6% chance of hitting Earth over the next 10 million years. So we can see that even by secular, non-religious viewpoints, um, the thought is out there that Earth is not going to last forever, that it is fragile, that it may come to an end someday. Speaking of asteroids, this is from a 1998 movie. I can't remember the name of the movie. It's got Morgan Freeman in it, being the president. But it's about a movie of, some of you may know the name of it. It's a movie that um, about an asteroid that hit planet Earth. Here's about a minute and a half of it. Wow. Okay. That looks pretty dire, doesn't it? Um, so I thought this pretty much summed it up. I found this cartoon. Here you've got the religious prophet, whatever, saying the end is near, holding up the Bible. But then you've got global warming, the scientists on the other side. The end is near. They're saying the same thing. Science and religion finally agree. There will be an end. But those of us who believe that God alone is in control of the destiny of this planet, believe that in Yahusha, Jesus, we will be delivered through or from great tribulation and saved forever. Uh, this is Matthew 24. This is what Jesus had to say. We're going to look at this passage today, Matthew 24, 3 to 14. As he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately saying, "Tell us when will these things be, and what will be the sign of your coming and the end of the age?" And Jesus answered them, "See that no one leads you astray, for many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Christ,' and they will lead many astray. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place. But the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are but the beginnings of birth pains. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and put you to death, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. And many false prophets will arise and lead many astray. And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. Ah, that is reassuring. And this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. Jesus also said this, "Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. All the peoples of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of the heavens to the other. First Thessalonians says, then we who are alive, who are left, will be caught up in the clouds together with them to meet the Lord in the air. So we will be with the Lord forever. All the dire things that are described in those few passages that may instill some fear in some people, it culminates with, do not fear, you will be saved if you are in Christ, if you are his elect. So we will be with the Lord forever. I trust you to save me, Lord God, and I won't be afraid. My power and my strength come from you, and you have saved me. Isaiah 12:2. What a great verse to remind us that we have no reason to be afraid. That doesn't mean difficult times are going to come, and they may affect us in many hard ways. But we win in the end, and we will be saved, is his promise to us. Okay, I want to give us a timeline for reference to see what we're exactly going to look at in this study. Of course, backing way up, there's the creation, and there's the Old Testament period, there's the ancient days, and sin entered the world in the Garden of Eden, and as in Adam, all die. But there was prophesied a Messiah would come, and he did, born in Bethlehem. Then that next line kind of represents, just let it represent until now, the last 2,000 years. At some point in the future, there's another period that does have a specific name to it. And it is a 7-year period called the Tribulation Period. And we're going to explore that and look at that in this study. Somewhere in that tribulation period, either at before it starts or in the middle of it or at the end, just before the end of it, there's an event that has been dubbed the rapture. The rapture is not a word that's in the Bible, but the Bible speaks about a snatching away, a removing of God's people. And so we're going to explore all of that in this study as well. But then what happens after that 7-year period, the tribulation, which is divided into um, two parts, the tribulation, the first half, and then the great tribulation, the second half of it. But then comes the second coming of Christ. There's the battle of Armageddon. Then what follows is the judgment seat of Christ, the Bema seat. And that is a judgment for all those who are saved. All of our works will be put to the test, so to speak. But that's a judgment seat for the saved. And we're going to talk about that as well. Then what happens after that is the millennial kingdom on earth. That is a 1,000-year reign. That's why it's called millennial kingdom. And then at the end of that, the great white throne judgment for all those that are lost. And after that judgment, that is where Satan and his legions are cast into the lake of fire and eternal punishment for those that are lost. And then what happens after that? Well, that shoots out into the rest of eternity, which is all that the Bible says about it, is that John saw a new heaven and a new earth. So we're going to be looking at pretty much this tribulation period and trying to get an understanding of that. Now I want to go back to this Matthew 24 section and pick this apart a little bit more. And Jesus sat on the Mount of Olives. The disciples came to him privately, saying, tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? And Jesus answered them, see that no one leads you astray, for many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ. And they will lead many astray, many false prophets. And he says, then a couple just specific things, but they seem rather general almost. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. Well, over the past 2,000 years, I think there have been a lot of wars and rumors of wars. So what does that tell us? It doesn't tell us a whole lot of timeline. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place, for the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. Um, Over the past 2,000 years, yes, there have been many famines and earthquakes in various places. So once again, this does not give us a very focused pinpoint clue as to when the end of the age will come. Although there have been some studies that have shown that earthquakes have been increasing in various parts of the world. My goodness, we've had an increase up around here in South Carolina just recently, haven't we? Verse 8, all these are but the beginning of birth pains. I think we need to pause right there because the tribulation period, which I said was a 7-year period divided into two parts, the first half being the tribulation, the second half the great tribulation. It might be better to think of the time of tribulation really divided into three parts. Jesus identified the beginning of birth pains. That could be a time that we don't want to ignore. Some believe that is where we are right now. There's always a lot of speculation by different people that we are in the last days. We certainly have been in the last days for the last 2,000 years. But are we coming to the end of the end? And that's what we want to look at as well. The tribulation, this is the first 3.5 years of Daniel's 70th week, and that's what we're going to explore as well. And then what's called the Great Tribulation. This is the last 3.5 years of Daniel's 70th week. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and put you to death, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. That doesn't sound just like normal tribulation. That sounds like great tribulation, but just hang on. They will deliver you up. And then many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. Fall away. Fall away from what? Fall away from the faith. Many that have had faith in God, faith in Jesus Christ. Many are going to fall away from their faith. That's what it says. But my question here is, who are they that will do these things? In the first half of the tribulation, it is man that carries out the evil deeds of persecution upon God's people, upon the church. But in the second half of the tribulation, the Antichrist will be fully revealed, and he boldly reigns, enforcing his mark on the world. He demands to be worshipped. Then the bowl judgments are poured out on the earth. And see, that's where after they will deliver you up, then it says next, and many false prophets will arise and lead many astray. Several times the Antichrist is spoken of in maybe difficult terms to understand because it talks about a spirit of Antichrist and that there are many Antichrists, but that there is one that will be the Antichrist. And we're going to look at that a little bit too. But many false prophets will arise and lead many astray. 1 John 2:18 says, children, it's the last hour. And just as you heard that Antichrist is coming, even now many Antichrists have appeared. From this we know that it is the last hour. 2 John 1:7, for many deceivers have gone out into the world. Those who do not acknowledge Jesus Christ is coming in the flesh. This is the deceiver and the Antichrist. So it says many deceivers have gone out, and it says this is the deceiver and the Antichrist. So some of these scriptures that we're looking at in English, that's why it's so important to try to get back to the original language and find out what is being said here. But there are many things that are a little bit confusing, such as this about we know that it's the last hour. Now, obviously, that is not to be taken literally when that was spoken. And there's a point that's to be made towards the end of this lesson today that really speaks about how we think about Bible prophecies and scriptures such as this. There are multiple fulfillments of scriptures, and I'm going to explain that here in just a little bit. And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. This does get a little bit more specific, perhaps. Lawlessness will be increased, and the love of many will grow cold. How could the increase of lawlessness cause the love of many to grow cold? Lawlessness is Torahlessness. That's the word, the law, the Torah. The Torah is what Yahweh, God, gave his children to be able to know him and live in a close relationship with the Father. And it's both the written Torah and the living Torah. Who's the living Torah? It's Jesus Christ, the living Word. In the beginning was the Word. Both the written Torah and the living Torah. And maybe I can illustrate it this way. If children forsake the teaching and instruction and rules laid down by their parents, their love for their earthly fathers and mothers will diminish. They will lose respect. They won't love their fathers and mothers if they forsake the teachings and instruction, if lawlessness increases. They may even question if their parents really love them. So this is kind of what I think is the relationship God wants to have with his people, is a father-child. He's spoken of so often as our Father. And there needs to be that trusting, loving relationship. But when we reject his laws, his ways, his teaching, both written and living, the love will diminish. And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will go cold. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations. Who will be proclaiming the gospel throughout the whole world? For sure, it would be those from among the believers whose love did not grow cold and will endure to the end. So this is a difficult passage to fully understand because it speaks about enduring to the end those whose love did not grow cold and those sharing the gospel all around the world. And then it says, and then the end will come. So we want to try and pick more of this apart, but I want to give you a broad overview of what we're looking at in this first lesson. The second coming of Yahushua, Jesus, is tied to several other major events. When these things happen, his return is imminent. And you've heard of some of these before. The last trumpet, the tribulation, the rapture, the abomination that brings desolation. So we want to talk about each one of those things. The crucial point to understand is that the Bible was written from a Hebraic mindset. It is cyclical, not linear, as is the Western mindset. This is very important to understand this. Many recorded events in the Bible are inherently prophetic because there is a repetition of events. Literally, what goes around comes around. And maybe I can illustrate it like this. Greek or Western mindset is linear. There's a timeline. I showed you a timeline from creation through the new heaven and new earth. It all looks like a straight line. Things just keep moving forward, forward, forward. But in the Hebrew mindset, it looks more like this. The Hebraic mindset is cyclical. What does this mean? You can think of an endless string of days on a timeline just as a straight line of continuous time. Or you can think of each day as a cycle that is literally a recreation of creation over and over again. See, God has a purpose and plan for everything he does. There are Old Testament prophecies that have had multiple fulfillments and fulfillments yet to come. That's very important to understand when we will be looking at the book of Daniel. Because the prophecies in Daniel, some would argue that say, well, they're all prophecies that, yes, were fulfilled. But there are aspects of it that say, wait a minute, there's a future fulfillment tied to these prophecies. And so that's why when you go back and look at some of the things, how Jesus said, we're in the last days, we're in the last hour. And things like that make it sound like when Jesus spoke those words, those disciples and people expected the end of the world, end of the age to happen to them. But yet, God's ways are not our ways. And he is timeless. And so it's kind of hard to put God in a time box with English words for us to try to decipher the prophecies that speak to what is in the future. But we're all concerned about the future because time is running out. Like I said in the beginning, everyone believes that there will be an end to this world. The question is, do you believe it's going to end under God's control, not by something that man has done? We do not need to fear all the hype about that man is going to destroy ourselves with the emissions and all these kinds of things. God is in control, and he will bring about judgment, no doubt about it. But overriding all of that is the safety that we find being in Christ Jesus. So, okay, I want to wrap this up by going a little further down in the end of the chapter 24 of Matthew, where Jesus says, immediately after the tribulation of those days, shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. So who are these people that are still around at the end of this tribulation? Notice that this sending his angels to gather his elect, it doesn't say from the four corners of the earth. It says from the four winds and from one end of heaven to the other. So is it perhaps that these elect that are being gathered by his angels are those that have previously been taken up, snatched away, raptured? That's what we're going to look at, the possibility of that. Now learn therefore a parable of the fig tree. When his branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, ye know that summer is nigh. So likewise ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. Now he's talking to his disciples. He's talking to his followers and telling them what to look for. And when you see these things, know that just like you identify the seasons, you can know that the season is coming near the time of his return. So verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass. And so he says, likewise ye, when ye shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the doors. Well, he's obviously telling his followers to be alert, to be able to see these things. He's assuming that there will be believers, his disciples, that will be alive on earth to see these things. Now, verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. That's another one of those. Did he mean that generation right there of the disciples he was talking to? Obviously not. He could mean, or must have meant, the generation that sees those things shall not pass till all things be fulfilled. And then I want to get down to this last part. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. A lot of people use this verse or like to point to this verse to say that, okay, no, we have no idea at all when Jesus is coming again. And so why even bother looking at these things that no man knows the day or the hour, and it could just be, millennia from now, or it could be next week. And so we just sit there in ignorance. This is not what this is saying, folks. Of the day and the hour knoweth no man, but he's telling you, he just mentioned about the seasons. Summer is nigh. You can know the season. Matter of fact, that's what 1 Thessalonians 5, 1, 2, and 4 say. Now, about the times and the seasons, brothers, we do not need to write to you, for you are fully aware that the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. But you, brothers, are not in the darkness, so that this day should overtake you like a thief. So if we are astute and we're walking closely with the Lord and we're looking for his return and we're aware of the signs and the seasons, his second coming will not surprise us like a thief in the night. We will not be overtaken like a thief in the night. This is very important to don't let this verse be something that is a catch-all verse to say, well, we shouldn't even be thinking about end days and end times because no man knows the day or the hour. Not wise at all. One last thing that I've said this before, and I think it's just so compelling. And at this point, we can look back on 6,000 years of biblical history. I used to not know this at all. I mean, how long of history is there in the Bible? There's genealogies that go back to Adam. The Bible records from where we are right now about 6,000 years of biblical history. Now, why is that so significant? I think it's simply because God has said in several times in 2 Peter 3:8, it says again in the Old Testament, but do not forget this one thing, dear friends. With the Lord, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day. I said earlier, it's hard to put God in a time box. And to God, if he has said several times that a day is as 1,000 years, 1,000 years is like a day, then with that analogy, Jesus was crucified, dead, buried, resurrected 2 days ago, right? There's a third day coming. Creation was enacted in 6 days, and on the seventh day, God rested. If each day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years are like a day, we could say day 1, 4,000 BC, was creation, 6,000 years ago. Day 2 was pre-flood, 3,000 to 2,000 BC, somewhere along close to 2,000 BC was the flood. Day 3, where we get Abraham, God calling his people up to 1,000, and Israel and Egypt and the Exodus. Then after that, you've got the nation of Israel established, but then the nation gets divided between Israel and Judah from 1,000 BC up to the time of Christ. Day 5. That is at the end of day 4 and the beginning of day 5, that is when Jesus came and the gospel spreads over the first 1,000 years of common era. Day 6 has been over the past 1,000 years. You might say this has been the time of the fullness of the Gentiles coming in that the Bible speaks about. So what would day 7 be? The Bible teaches about this millennial kingdom on earth. I believe that this is very compelling to look at. God is timely. The seventh day has always been major in God's teaching in His Torah. The number 7 plays out over and over and over as the perfect number. 6,000 years, 6 days, the seventh day is upon us. I think that's just very compelling and exciting to contemplate and look at that Jesus is coming soon. I want to leave you with this song I wrote in 2015. And it just says, wouldn't it be great to be here when Jesus comes again, to be alive when He comes back? And so I'll leave you with this song, and we'll see you next week. Well, next Wednesday, I think I'm going to move the Wednesday night class to the chapel. So be looking for that, because we had a good number in the room last Wednesday and want to give us a little more elbow room. So look to see you next week. Thanks. Bye.
To live is Christ, to die is gain, but how much greater to see Him on that day. He'll take my breath away, to be there when He comes again. Ever since I came to faith, Lord, and put my trust in You, I have known Your love and grace in the storms that I've been through. Oh, to be the bride of Christ, a church so pure and wide. I'm listening for that final show, announcing Your inside. To live is Christ, to die is gain, but how much greater to see Him on that day. He'll take my breath away, again. You will come and take Your place, and every knee will bow. You will make an end to war and the hatred we see now. Oh, Jerusalem, children sing. You will be our living Torah, Yehovah our King. Now every time I sing Your praise, I feel I just can't wait. I look toward the sky, my redemption draweth nigh. I just wanna shout and sing with all my mind. Yeshua come, Yeshua come, Yeshua come, Yeshua come, Yeshua come, Yeshua come, Yeshua come. Yeshua come. to see him on that day. He'll take my breath away, to be there when he comes again. When he comes again.